Before 2008, the biggest names for Marvel were Wolverine, Hulk, and Spider-Man. At the time, Iron Man wasn't really considered one of Marvel's major mainstream characters. He was always listed in the B tier. I mean, sure, he did have a 1994 Iron Man animated series, which by the way, had a killer opening. And with that show, he did make many guest appearances in other Marvel cartoons. And he did of course have appearances in video games, most prevalent the Marvel vs. Capcom series, Marvel's Nemesis Rise of the Imperfects, and of course, the Marvel Ultimate Alliance games. Funny enough, before the debut of the original Iron Man movie, we did get an animated Invincible Iron Man movie. And honestly, this movie was okay. It wasn't bad. The animation looked pretty decent. It's just, the story was average, I would say. And it wasn't really that out of the norm. I mean, Marvel, for its in-house animated studio shows and movies, they weren't really holding a candle to DC's animated in-house movies. However, that was about to change because Marvel was actually choosing Iron Man, in a sense, to launch their first movie universe. It was a huge gamble. The creation to get this character out on the big screen dates all the way back to the late 90s. In fact, early screenplays were featuring MODOK as the main villain. I mean, and we kind of ended up seeing that in Ant-Man 3, and well, that wasn't good. And at the same time, there was a moment that they were going to approach Quentin Tarantino to direct and write the first movie. I mean, can you imagine that? Quentin directing an Iron Man film. You know, it really wouldn't be that far off because when you look at Pulp Fiction, I mean, and the characters that he writes, it kind of fits the Tony Stark style. And before we had Robert as Iron Man, Tom Cruise was initially going to be the front-running man to be the character. Of course, the film never really got to get made due to financial issues and a lack of creative control. It's funny, still to this day, we'd all think that if we see a version of Iron Man, like a variant, we all would like to see Tom Cruise. I mean, that would be pretty awesome, honestly. We got Henry Cavill as Wolverine, so who knows? Anything's possible in the MCU. But that was all going to change when Jon Favreau finally arrived at Marvel. Unfortunately, Marvel was giving him pushback, especially when he was trying to cast Downey as Iron Man. Due to the personal struggles that he had in his early life, Marvel thought that this just wouldn't be a good idea. But I feel like Favreau saw the real side of Downey. Knowing what he went through, it matches what Iron Man basically comes to. Somebody that's reckless in life and then slowly puts himself together and becomes a great example for people. That's what Iron Man is.
I just finally know what I have to do. And I know in my heart that it's right.
And I mean, look how it ended up being. I can't see anybody else playing Tony Stark. Downey was just made for that role. In many ways, he made a comeback and mirrored Tony Stark's own redemption story. But although they found their Tony Stark, building this MCU was going to be much harder than they really realized. I mean, Marvel had spent years licensing many of its biggest characters to different movie studios. Sony controlled Spider-Man, Fox controlled X-Men and Fantastic Four, and I believe Universal also held the rights for Hulk. I mean, they had early concepts considering connecting Tony Stark to Sam Raimi's Spider-Man universe by having Stark Industries actually be involved in creating Doc Ock's mechanical arms. Unfortunately, those ideas couldn't happen due to the movie rights. It kind of shows you how fragile Marvel was before the MCU. But hey, despite all those limitations, in the end, they managed to build the biggest cinematic universe of all time. And I think that's what makes the first Iron Man just so successful, because it wasn't just a movie, it was the foundation and the first brick in the wall to show that the impossible was possible. So why did Iron Man work? It had so many things going for it. And I mean, a lot of things also going against it. I mean, it came out the same year as The Dark Knight, and that is held as one of the greatest, if not the greatest comic book movie of all time. But I think what made this movie very special is that we've already seen how Batman works. We've had movies of him, good ones and bad ones. Seeing Iron Man on the big screen, that was brand new. Audiences had never seen that before. But despite being introduced to great characters, this movie just feels so different compared to any other Marvel movie. Despite having a mechanical suit, they used quite a lot of practical effects, but it made the film feel that much special. I mean, look at the Iron Man suits, Mark 1, Mark 2, and Mark 3. In my personal opinion, those suits just look way better and in a sense have way more character than what we got in the end of Endgame with the nanotech suit. I just never been really a big fan of that. Of course, it's pretty handy that he can swap and go into the Iron Man suit anytime he wants, but I miss when Tony really just took his time and you saw all the mechanical gears, the grooves, all that forming into making the actual Iron Man suit. It felt weighty, powerful, and it just looked so damn cool. Even the noises that the suit made when it was moving around, you don't really hear that in the other Marvel movies anymore. I miss that. A lot of these Marvel movies have a strict formula that we already kind of get. Some of them don't follow it all the way, but in a sense, we know what to expect. But I think it's just also the simplicity of being just one story. You know, now things have just gotten so big and so massive that I feel like sometimes you just want to watch something that's just one singular story. And I feel like that movie just captures it perfectly, because while they were still trying to establish a universe, the priority was making the film good, not make a film and have multiple callbacks to other superheroes and cameos. But that first Iron Man movie, it has a real good solid story and a great redemption arc for Tony. And even when the film came out on DVD, I caught myself watching Iron Man twice as much as The Dark Knight. And I love Batman, and he is my favorite comic book character of all time. But I think one of the cooler aspects is that we actually got so much merchandise when this movie came out. I used to have the Iron Man figure that had the blaster and the Ironmonger, which is pretty awesome. They were great figures, by the way, really hefty. Now, Iron Man did have a movie tie-in game, but the big differences were the PS2 and the Xbox 360/PS3. Those games, while they followed the similar storyline of the movie, played very differently. I would say in the terms of the gameplay, I did enjoy the PS2 version more, especially the final battle. It actually seemed much more accurate than the one that we got in the 360 version. Now, the biggest thing though after watching this movie was the end credit scene. Back then, these didn't really show up in movies at the time. Some movies would show them, but it really wasn't that normalized. I mean, now people stick for movies that aren't even Marvel or DC, which is kind of funny. But when you see Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury talking about an Avengers initiative, dude, that changed everything. And it's a pretty big deal because back then, remember, the only big superhero movie teams that we got, they weren't really the best. I mean, the Fantastic Four movies, they weren't that good. And then the X-Men movies, while the first and second were the best, they've always made Wolverine the main character instead of giving other characters a shine. And trying to incorporate characters like Captain America, Thor, Hulk, you know, the core Avengers team, people were wondering, how are they going to do that? Are they going to favor one character more and just leave the other ones just in the background? It wouldn't give a lot of character development. And that was the big issue that a lot of these movies were having. Who would have thought that really, when you think about it, it's very simple, but each character of that team got a specific movie that built their story up and then led to the big final conclusion of the first Avengers movie. And I think that's why the first Avengers movie, no matter how big the other ones get, that first superhero shot of them circling around, teaming up in the Battle of New York is one of the best, if not the greatest shot of any comic book movie of all time. But the funny thing is, they actually had to rework what Nick Fury was going to say originally in that post-credit scene. He was going to mention like gamma accident, radioactive bug bites, and mutants. But of course, the problem was the film rights, so they had to scrap it and just make it what we got. And to be honest, it worked perfectly. This movie is the most important movie, I would say, of not just Marvel, DC, and comic books in general. It just shows that the ambition that they had, they nailed it right on the head, and it created one of the greatest things ever in cinema history. And it transformed one of Marvel's lesser icons to becoming, if not one of the most recognizable characters of all time, standing toe-to-toe with Spider-Man. Kids today know instantly who Tony Stark is, and without Iron Man succeeding, the MCU would have never happened. It's been years, look how many movies we got. And while it can get a little overwhelming, it's all thanks to that movie. Iron Man didn't just simply launch the franchise, it transformed Marvel into the biggest comic book company of all time. This movie was dealing with a lot of redemption and second chances and believing in yourself and showing that a man's past doesn't define him. I mean, hell, Batman even says that, so look, there we go. And if you guys enjoy these type of videos where we take a look back at certain eras, movies, video games, and just pop culture in general, go ahead and check out the rest of the channel. And like Tony Stark said, I am Iron Man.